Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.
Hey, everybody, we're gonna get started. Let's see, I have. I'm sorry.
We got I'm mute. Okay. Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for the opportunity that you have given us to come today and to be trained as a board and then to come together tonight to meet as a board. And thank you for Trussville City Schools and all the progress that we're making and for the opportunities that we have. Pray that you will be with us as we conduct our business tonight and as we get prepared to start the next school year. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, let's see, Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Kim DeShato.
Here.
Kathy Brown.
Here.
Sherry Tolbert.
Present.
Steve Ward.
Here.
Jason Daniel.
Here.
All right, thank you, everybody. Thanks for being here. We got visitors tonight that we need to, let's see, Lisa Bright's here. If you want to, Lisa, you want to give us our, oh, wait, I'm sorry, I'm going out of order. We need to adopt our agenda. Is that the next thing we do? All right, let's adopt our agenda. Sorry, I'm having computer difficulties and I'm trying to do two things at once. Okay, let's adopt our agenda for tonight. With anyone, has everybody had an opportunity to look at our agenda for the evening?
Yes.
Okay, do I have a motion to adopt it?
Motion.
Second? Second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor of adopting tonight's agenda? Any opposed? All right, agenda is adopted. Now, Lisa Bright is here tonight. Thanks, Lisa, for coming. If you could give us a report on the city.
I understand being president. It's harder than it looks to get all that stuff and get it in order and Robert's rules and all the things. We had city council meeting last Tuesday night, and one of the things that we did was a proclamation for the Drum Corps International will be here at our high school on July the 28th. I believe it's at 6 o'clock. So we had to do that to claim it as a city event. It'd be a really cool event, I think, to go to and take your kids and see such a fantastic drum line perform right here in Trussville. So keep that on your calendar. We also authorized the mayor to go into a licensing agreement with Trussville City School Foundation for the Jumbotron that's going to go at the high school. We're really excited about that. We have Leadership Trussville. We're real excited. We had 42 applicants. Normally we take about 30. So 42 is a really good testimony to such a great program. So we will hopefully make that announcement in the next few weeks of those the top 30-ish people that they will choose. Our new pickleball courts are officially opened, but they're not dedicated yet, but they're already playing on them. So the covered ones up at the park, they're open. We have 8 covered courts and they're pretty fantastic and great opportunity if you play pickleball. I don't play pickleball, but a lot of people do. And then the Mayor's Pro Breakfast is going to be August the 4th at 6:30 a.m. at the Civic Center. If you haven't been, it's really a great opportunity to just get a lot of good updates on the city. And then Jeremiah Castile is our speaker this year. So he's got a great testimony and it'll be an awesome event. So reservations can be made through the chamber. So that's all that I have, unless y'all have anything for me.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Martin, I'll turn it over to you for recognitions.
I was going to see Miss Young and Jason and Christy, if you join me up here, please. We have one recognition for this evening, and this is a grant in our career tech department, correct? And yes, how much was that grant for?
$50,000.
$50,000 that they wrote a grant for, which is just outstanding. I'm going to ask Miss Young if you would talk just a little bit about what we're going to do with that money.
Absolutely. As you know, we're getting a new space at the high school for career technical education. And so we needed some equipment to put in that space. Part of the space is going to be dedicated to the engineering academy. It will be an engineering lab space. And so Jason and his wife, Christy, really worked really hard They identified the equipment that we were going to need, and then Christy's an English teacher at our school, and so she helped Jason. And they really did the work on writing this grant, and we're very excited. We have the equipment on hand, and we're ready when that space is ready to move that in. So very appreciative to Jason and Christy. They are a dynamic duo at our high school and servant leaders in our community, and we're very grateful for the work that they did on this grant.
Anything that either of you would like to say?
No, we're just excited to see our program grow and keep growing, and it's gonna we're also adding aerospace engineering next year. We're excited about that too, so. Program continues to grow, it's a joy. It's really good.
On behalf of the students, we'll get to utilize this space and excited about that. I'd like to thank you, and if we could give them a round of applause.
Okay, next up is Mr. Kirkland with our financial report.
Thank you. Dr. Martin, board members, I provided in your packet the monthly financials for June. Just as a matter of record, all the bank accounts have been reconciled and balanced to the financials and uploaded to the State Department as required. Just to kind of give you a brief update on revenues, our ad valorem revenues are about 92.85% of budget compared to 93% this time last year, but still coming in real strong, and I think we'll end the year really strong. Budget wise, we are about 65% of our general fund expenditures compared to about 68% last year. And of course, we're 9 months into the year, so that's about 75% of our budget. So we're still, pretty conservative and kind of under that time frame. And of course, once the board approves the financials, they will be on our website for public view. And of course, budget hearing. It's that time of year again. The state of Alabama requires each school system to do 2 public hearings a year. And our budget is due to the state on September 15th. Because of the way our board meetings are held, we have to have a public hearing in July and August in order for it to be approved. Otherwise, we have to call a special board meeting just to approve the budget. So tonight is our first public hearing. I know most of you in here have been a part of one of our public hearings before. But outside the table, if you didn't get a packet, is a copy of our budget packet. The form and content is determined by the state of Alabama. So I didn't design it. I didn't determine what goes in it, but we'll talk about each of the parts as we go through tonight. And if you have trouble with falling asleep, just get it, because it's they'll put you right out. I'm sorry, but it is pretty dry. We are one of the downsides of doing a budget hearing this early. The numbers that I present tonight are draft. There are several allocations that we do not have yet, so I've estimated a lot of our federal allocations and some of our state appropriations until they come out. Materially, everything is there. So I'll just tweak it between now and August to get the final numbers where they are. So for the most part, this is our budget with some minor tweaks to get to the end result. If you go to the next screen. And I apologize if it's not font, but again, there is a packet that has this where you can read it. We'll spend most of the night here tonight. When I say tonight, the next 2 or 3 minutes. I won't take all night, I promise you. But I do like to go over this. This is our budget. Every month I present a report to the board. It is on our website of a budget to actual comparison of where we are throughout the year so that the public and the board can see what our budget is, what our actuals are, and how we are doing. I'd like to explain what the budget is and what these columns and rows represent. There is detailed explanation in the handout, again, if you want to read it. But I ought to start from the far right and work my way over. The fiduciary expenditure trust amounts you can tell are smaller amounts than all the other columns, because those are our clubs and booster groups at the high school and middle school. So those are really not revenue that belong to the school. They belong to a student group, a parent group, where we are just a fiduciary trust of those funds, and they dictate how those funds are spent. Usually there's a faculty sponsor that helps guide that process. The next column over is capital projects. For FY23, we have a lot in that column. We've discussed a lot about the various capital projects we've got going on. Earlier today, Brian and I will have an update later on today about our FY23 projects. In our budget amendment, anything that's not spent in FY23 will roll over into 24. So later on in the year, we'll come back and amend this to show those expenditures that will happen in FY24. Debt service is basically our mortgage. We issue bonds to carry out various capital projects, Magnolia School, the renovation of Cahaba, the high school. So we have several debt service out there that we have to pay. So basically it's a big giant mortgage is the way I like to look at it. The next column is special revenue. What those columns are, what makes up that column is our local school books, anything at raised and generated at a school level is calculated as a special revenue, as well as our federal programs, which is child nutrition and special education. Those restricted funds are accounted for and maintained in special revenue. And then basically everything else falls in the general fund category. That is the operations of the school system. And you can look, the total revenues for the general fund is basically $57 million. All that $57 million, the foundation program makes up $35 million of that amount. And our local 601 fund makes up $15 million. So roughly 89% of our general fund column is made up of two funding sources. And I'll go a little bit more in detail of that. Of the rest, we have about 15 to 20 grants appropriations that make up the balance of that. So by and large, most of our operations is handled out of either the foundation program or our local operating fund. Other than the 2% stake raise and the few units that we've added at the various schools, this is a pretty level budget, meaning operationally what was budgeted last year is pretty much the same what we're budgeting this year, other than the capital project. So very, very close budget to what 23 looked like. Go to the next page. This is just kind of a graphical representation of the same chart, if you like, pie charts. It shows the different percentages between state and local. Obviously, the majority of our revenue does come from the state at 57%. Our local revenue makes up 38%. Federal is high right now because of some ESSER funds that we still have. Once those are gone away, the federal funds will drop. We're usually around 1 to 2% federal funds. So only about another year left in those. On the expenditure side, instructional service makes up 54%. Obviously, we're a school system. Instructional services is what goes on in the classroom. That is your teachers, teachers aid, and anything related to their carrying out instruction in a classroom. Whether it's instructional supplies, textbooks, whatever, those go into instructional services. The next biggest category is instructional support services. That's basically anybody else at a school. That's your principal, your bookkeeper, anybody kind of outside of the school, but still on campus there at the school that support the instruction that's going on in the school system. Maintenance and operations. That's a combination. That is your custodians in your school building, as well as the red shirts, our maintenance guys. And also a part of that is our contracted services between our ground services and our cleaning services. Our budget is $1.4 million. So we have a lot of square footage in our buildings and a lot of land that we have to take care of. So we have services that come in and that we bid out to help us take care of those. So that's a big part of the $6 million. Go to the next slide. I've already mentioned the foundation, and that is the largest part of the state revenues that we receive. This is the funding mechanism from the state of Alabama. It's handled, it is dictated by the legislature and handled through the State Department of Education. It all starts with our students. Every year, we have to submit a report that we refer to as our ADM report. It is a year behind. So every year in October, we submit this report that breaks down our average enrollment by grade, by school. They take that number and divide it by divisors to calculate how many teachers they are going to fund through the foundation program. So it's all based off our student count. We then have to turn in another report, we call it LEAPS, which basically tells how many teachers we have, their years of experience, and the type of degree that they earn. So they plot that all on this graph, and then they calculate how much they're going to give us for the salaries that we pay for the teachers. And then, as you go see chart, there's obviously benefits that we have to pay those teachers. And then OCE, which is other current expenses. Basically, that's what we use to pay for all the support staff at a school. Your instructional aides, your custodians, your library aides, basically anybody that's at a school that's not a teacher comes out of OCE. And then finally, they fund a certain amount for classroom instructional supply, as well as textbooks, professional development. We are incidentally going to get a separate allocation this year to increase teacher supply money. Basically, it will take both allocations together, will provide $1,000 per teacher, classroom teacher, for classroom instructional supplies. So hopefully that will help in what y'all need going forward. Next page. Just very briefly, this is the ADM report. So you can see it's broken down by school, by grade. This is the 22-23 ADM report, which meant this is from October of 2022. This is the funding. This is the numbers that we were funded for next year, for 23-24. So we're basically funded a year behind, and they have some calculations that kind of help growing systems. But so we're about the funding time period for ADM is 20 days after Labor Day. So you have Labor Day, it starts the clock for 20 days. You average enrollment every day for 20 days, and then you turn, that's your ADM that you turn in to the state. You can go to the next. All right, and I mentioned they take that number, divide it by certain divisors, and then they tell you how many units you earn for teachers, principals, assistant principals, whatever. This is our system This is how much we earn for the entire system. Again, the handout breaks it down by school if you're interested in that, to see how many units are earned at each school level. You can go to the next page. This is a chart that, okay, on the previous chart, you don't have to go back. We earned 318 units. This chart shows how many units we actually have. So through other state sources, federal and local sources, we actually have 355.9 FTEs. The 0.9 are retired teachers that we bring back on a part-time basis. So we don't have 0.9 of a person. That's why it's a weird amount. Again, the handout breaks this down. If you're interested to know how many local units are at a school level or at a particular school, the handout would show that. And last, I showed a similar chart last week last month when we did the budget amendment. So this is next year's just a snapshot analysis of our local operating fund. And you can look at revenues and expenditures to see how closely they mirror each other. So this, like I said, this is a very level funded budget. I'm anticipating to end FY23 at about $1.4 million rollover. Hopefully we'll be a little bit better than that. So we'll end the year strong. As of right now, again, projecting very closely to that for FY24. So, it's barring nothing happening. This is a strong budget. It's, and we've been able to add some units where we needed to. And again, this is a draft right now. Should not change a whole lot, but I'll go over the changes in August to kind of let you know what got changed and what didn't. But as of right now, that's where we stand. Any questions?
Real quick question, Councilor Bright. Financially, city is still doing well. It's
We're ahead of every month that based on the prior year about 4 or 5%.
okay, thank you.
We like that connection.
Got to give some money profit. Values were a little elevated.
Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to commend Mr. Kirkland on another really good budget. And this year was particularly difficult, I think, as the supplemental gave some information and you had to really do a deep dive to gather as much information to have it ready for this evening. So
Sponsor draft.
yes. very
There's still a
appreciative.
lot coming, but
Yeah.
I spent all morning in a meeting with State Department. And so there's some allocations that we don't have everything yet, but it's coming.
All right.
Thank you.
I don't think we all appreciate how spoiled we are
Yes.
with having Mr. Kirkland. Thank you, Jim. Okay, let's see. Next is consent agenda, Dr. Martin.
All right. Well, it is almost time for school to start when we have nearly 2 pages of renewals. It looks like we have several bid renewals in anticipation of school starting, things such as lawn care, ground maintenance, chemical application, and cleaning. We also have several items pertaining to renewals in the area of curriculum and instruction. So you'll see several subscriptions and applications, IXL, other items for our students to utilize and our teachers to utilize once they come back to school in August. We have 3 field trip requests for the board to approve here under the consent agenda. 2 items I would like to have you pay attention to. The first is item 8, which deals with it's a change order, but it also highlights the fact that Mr. Kirkland and his team have done significant renovations there at the high school auditorium as well as the middle school auditorium in the area of sound and light. So I'm sure that our principals as well as those departments are very appreciative. And then the other item that I would like for you to pay particular attention to here is item number 5, which deals with a district-wide compensation study. Recommendation to have the firm Lean Frog come in and look at compensation across the system. And this falls in line nicely with action item number 1, which is the approval of our salary schedules for the system. So with that said, I'd recommend to the board consent agenda.
All right, board, anybody, we have a motion to approve our consent agenda? Make a motion. Second?
Second.
All right, any discussion of the any consent agenda item? All right, all in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye. Any opposed? All right. Let's see, next on the agenda is personnel. Martin.
Yes, we have under our personnel report this evening, retirement. We have a few resignations of supplement. We have 3 leaves of absence for recommendation. I apologize, 4. We have the recommendation for employment. Couple of supplements, approval of a contract, long-term substitute. We have recommendation for 1 transfer reassignment, 1 recommendation for schedule change, and then employee extra services agreement. So those make up our recommendations for personnel for this evening.
All right, board, do we have a motion to approve the personnel recommendations? I'll make a motion. Second? Any discussion? All right, all in favor of the personnel recommendations, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that carries as well.
All right.
New business?
Real quick, just looking at the personnel report, 2 items that I do want to just retroactively go back to here. I'm excited. I'm very excited about these 2. We have with us tonight, Mark Knaus. Mark, if you wouldn't mind standing, please. Mr. King brings a recommendation for Mr. Knaus to be our new band director here at Trussville High School. He comes very, very highly recommended. And so I'm excited to introduce him to the Trussville community. So welcome.
Thank you.
And then an individual that needs no introduction, but I am very pleased to be able to say we have dropped the interim tag from Mr. Meads as the principal there at Trussville Middle School. So if we can give a round of applause as well.
Great. Yeah, let's say next is new business.
Yes, our first item under new business, as I mentioned before, we have the recommendation to approve the Trussville City Schools 23-24 salary schedule effective July 1 of 2023.
All right. I guess. Okay. Okay. All right. Do I have a motion to approve the salary schedule?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, second. All right, any discussion there?
All right, as far as the salary schedule is concerned, this reflects what was passed this most recent legislative session. So this does include the 2% increase. It includes the increase on the salary schedule for system nurses, and then also includes the legislator recommendation to, or I guess they passed the need to make sure that everyone earns the $15 per hour minimum. So again, Mr. Kirkland and his team have done a nice job of making sure that our salary schedule is in compliance with statute per this most recent legislative session.
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor of approving the salary schedule, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that carries. Next is the handbook.
Yes, so action item number 2 that we have this evening is the approval of the Trussville City Schools Student Parent Handbook and the changes and draft form that we had prior to this meeting that the board has reviewed and now approved the final handbook.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve the handbook? I make a motion to approve the handbook. Okay, second? Second. All right, and it looks like we got Dr. Poovey here for some discussion, maybe?
Yes, I asked Dr. Poovey if she would share just the process of this, that this isn't Dr. Poovey's handbook, that it is indeed the Trussville City Schools handbook. Want to make sure that she shares that and then also any significant changes that have been made. So Dr. Poovey.
Yes, this was a collaborative process and we appreciate that we had parents
administrators, teachers, all types of staff on this committee, but most helpful honestly was the student leadership team at Trussville High School, who really reviewed some things and asked some good questions for us to go back and evaluate. And so we appreciated that support, and we do that same process at the end of every year. So we'll do this again next year and make sure we've made some progress. The significant changes are that we just wanted to make it more readable for our families. We wanted to make sure they had the information they needed to register and all the information there. But also when it came to the code of conduct, we defined each of those things that were minor to extreme offenses and made sure that parents understand what those terms were. We provided appendices at the back so parents can easily access the forms that they need, as well as the dress code, which went through a few drafts, but I think we have found some things that are most effective and will be helpful to all of our school community. So, thank you. Any questions? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, one thing that I would add, and I appreciated that Dr. Poovey did this as well, but following the consensus building that she had with the team, she did vet this through our school attorney, Mr. Colvin, just to make sure. And I think that was a pretty extensive review by you and an associate in your office, just to make sure that everything was on par legally. Okay.
All right, any further discussion? All right, all in favor of adopting the handbook, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carried. All right, I will turn it back to you for administrative report.
All right, members of the board, for administrative reports this evening, we do have two. So the first report that we have is from Mr. Kirkland and Mr. Ferris, and this is a capital projects update.
On our capital projects, I got a few pictures here. This is our career tech. They've laid the interior block walls, set some door frames in there, got the concrete slab done. They should be working on getting the windows in. I think they start putting windows in tomorrow. And we're waiting on our tech and ceiling. I think it delivers August the 8th, somewhere around in there. So once the ceiling goes in, then they can start finishing out the inside. Next one.
Remind me, how many rooms are down
3
there?
labs,
Oh, it's 3 labs. Okay.
3 labs, large labs.
Oh, good.
Baseball field that they're removing the dirt on. We hope to get a proof roll toward the end of the week to see, how our soil is there. If we're gonna have, how much unsuitable soils we'll have to replace. Maybe not a lot, but you never know. Go ahead, Joanne. This is our multi-purpose field. I know it doesn't look like it, but this is supposed to be ready before school starts. We are, they have all the perimeter drains in. They're working on the curb. The curb, they'll finish pouring tomorrow. And then they'll start dressing up the outside. It's a different crew. The other crew's already moved to baseball. Once they finish baseball, they're gonna move to soccer. So turf should be ordered this week. And they tell me when the turf comes in, it's a pretty fast process. They'll get the turf in. It's gonna be close, but they plan to have it ready before school.
What are completion dates for those 3 projects for turf? So for multi-purpose
This one,
baseball and soccer.
Multi-purpose is supposed to be done before school starts. Soccer is gonna be before the season. Baseball is gonna be before the season starts. They've got it all, like, they're moving to the fields to try to get them completed before each sport's time for them to start practicing and have to play on. That's what those are. Next one. Okay, this is our pavilion. What you see there is the parts that are dug out that were unsuitable soil. That gives you an idea how much unsuitable soil there were on that field from backfield, and that's where they're dug out. Go to the next one. There's another picture you can tell. Go to the next one. Here's what the geo grid they put into the bottom to stabilize. They come back in with the dirt on the top of the geo grid. That gives you some kind of idea how much grid they needed in different areas. And they're filling in, that's been filling in the upper side up there that already had grid all the way down. And here's another aerial shot, and there's the rebar mats that are going in for the concrete footings. The next one, the one you see a picture of the footings. These are the footings going around that side, and there'll be another row of footings on this side. And that's kind of what they look like. This is very large, like 15 by 15 footings, but this is going to be an extremely large building. Yeah. I think that was it, wasn't it, Dwayne? All right. On the other projects, we have theater lighting is complete. We have a training on the 20th of this month, and we have a final inspection set up on the 31st. So all that should be good. I was at the band room earlier, They were replacing the band room, get brand new carpet for a brand new band room.
That's right. Just in time.
Just in time. So they're gonna finish that carpet up in one room before the kids get out there for camp, and then they're gonna switch to the other room and finish it on that. That's kind of where we're at. Any
little
questions
busy.
about any of that?
It's a lot to juggle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our second report tonight under administrative reports, Dr. Barry, and she's going to share with us some great news on AP scores.
Really good news. Thank you, Dr. Martin. So we are going to talk a little bit about our 5-year AP study. You guys have the entire presentation. So my part is just kind of some of the highlights. And firstly, just want to say what a great job, for our teachers, our AP teachers and our students, and just the consistency. I think that's kind of one of the key takeaways of really what our scores have looked like. So just kind of some facts. From 2019 to 2023, our students have taken 4,662 exams across the spectrum of AP. We will have 24 AP offerings beginning this current school year. Our new courses will be AP Pre-Calculus and AP English 10 Seminar. And of course, a qualifying score on the AP is a 3, 4, or 5. So as I kind of talk about that, kind of keep those numbers in mind. So what we'll do is we'll spend just a couple minutes and sort of chunk it by content area and just kind of give you some highlights. So in science, we'll start with science. We had increased biology exam participation by almost 20 students from 22 to 23. And over the last 5 years, our biology students as a whole have achieved a qualifying mean score on all exams, which is very impressive. So that means a 3 or higher. Chemistry exam numbers also increased a little bit in 2023. And something significant about chemistry is all of our students in chemistry made a qualifying score. It's pretty impressive. Environmental science, over the last 4 years, we've had an overall mean qualifying score achieved by our students. And then the same thing in physics. And that's pretty impressive because I call it the physics suite, because there's 1, 2 electricity and mechanics. So there's multiple physics components to the AP exam. So overall science was excellent. Same thing in math. In both calculus AB and BC are consistent mean qualifying scores. And then in BC, we've had a qualifying mean score for 5 years in a row. So from 2019 forward. And this is a pretty cool stat for stats. AP stats, we had 3 students achieve a 5, a perfect score in 2019. And this past year we had 13. Significant perfect score. History, we always do well in history too. And so we have high numbers in history as far as just the number of students that take those courses. Psychology, we do very well. World history, a highlight of world history, we had 16. Well, let me just reverse that. In 2019, we had 5 5s, and this past year we had 16 perfect scores in world history. And we typically have a lot of freshmen taking that. Just as in AP Bio, we have freshmen participating in that as well. So that's kind of interesting. In macroeconomics, we had our highest exam total that we've had in the last 5 years with an overall mean score of 3.25. So very impressive there. And then with ELA, gosh, this one, we always have high numbers in our ELA. In English language, we had 165 total tests taken with an overall mean score of 3.09. And 42 of those students scored a 4. So just right under that perfect mark. And then in English Lit, we had 108 exams with an overall mean score of 3.6. So a 4, with 46 students scoring a 4. And then we also offer world languages, computer science. And so we're working to increase those numbers. We'd like to see our art numbers go up a little bit. We'd like to see our Spanish numbers, increase the test, students taking those tests. But overall, there's just so much to be proud of. And like I said, the consistency. And we were talking in our leadership meeting about, this is our 2nd year of being in under the AP grant. But I think what's also significant is, we were achieving some of these scores before the grant. And what's great about the grant is the incentives that it gives to our kiddos, to our teachers, the resources that we're able to utilize as a result of that. And so, yeah, just can't be more proud of our students and teachers. So I just wanted to give you guys some high points of AP. Any
Thank
questions?
you.
Thank y'all. And like I said, you guys have the presentations broken down each year. So you can see it. Yeah, great.
All right, Dr. Berry, thank you so much. That just, you stop and you think not only of the points of pride that this has for the school system, but also the potential dollars saved by families who now this is college credit being earned in the high school. So it's a program I know you're proud of and one that you want to continue to grow here for the system. So thank you, Dr. Berry.
All right, we do not have anyone sign up tonight for public participation, so I don't have anything else on the agenda. Anybody else got anything they want to discuss? All right, well then I will accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All right, in favor, let's go. Thank you.